Hello, welcome to the video. So I just want to go a little bit over Clement. Now, if you watch my other video on Clement, I believe it has been modified. And I'm going to show you a little bit more why. But something I want to point out to you, and it was just pointed out in another video by a gentleman, Patrick, called 119 Ministries or something like that. So anyway, he pointed out in chapter 32, Clement, that Clement believed we are justified not by our own works, but by faith. And that is so true. So, so when the Catholics go around saying, well, the church has been believing it for 2,000 years, works, whatever, not the case here. But something I want to point out. In the beginning here, introductory note, Clement was probably a Gentile and a Roman. There's no way he was a Gentile. When you look at this, okay, the way he writes here, for from him have sprung the priests and all the Levites who minister at the altar of God. From him also descended our Lord Jesus Christ in the flesh. From him rose king, prince of the race of Judah. Okay, nor the other tribes of small glory. Okay, he comes off as a Jew here. This is not something the way Gentiles speak. Okay, so again, this is probably based on, in the fact that it said Roman as well. I believe this right here, the very first sentence, was actually modified. Clement did not write that. And so by adding the Church of God, which was in Rome, to the Church of God, who's in Corinth, okay, it's the way of centralizing the center of theocracy around Rome. And so by doing this and then calling him Clement of Rome, then people believe he's Rome. Okay. I do not believe that's the case. I believe this guy was the real deal. I believe he was part of the house of Israel. He was part of Philippi, okay, which meant that he went part of the stick of Joseph, which would have meant that he would have left Philippi by the year 66. The year 66, arrived at their gathering, the house of Israel, by, look at my timeline, September 11th, AD 66. That's just the stick of Joseph. Those are the Jews that have been scattered throughout the Roman Empire. He was not around after AD 66. It was definitely not in Rome. Okay? And if you watch my other videos, I point out how he's concerned about the Jews repenting. And that had been written by the time the Jews, during their revolt, the Jewish revolt, by September of AD 66. So this is really sad. Anyway, again, when you read this, and I go over some of my other videos as well, other areas of his writing, it heavily suggests this guy was part of the house of Israel. Okay, he was the real deal. And if you want to get your theology from our mother, if you will, Galatians chapter 4, verse 26, or from the Jews who came to Christ, this would be it. Okay? It's his writings. So anyway, yeah, so I do not believe that he was in Rome. I believe he was in Philippi. I believe he was Paul writes about Clement being name written in the book of life, which also suggests he's part of the house of Israel. Okay. So it's just sad that, and I believe this, you should watch my videos, and it's in the 4th century where there's a rewriting of church history that took place. Again, you should watch my videos, how difficult or easy it would have been. You should look into it. It was actually way easier than a person typically thinks. Okay, you couldn't do it today to the extent that Eusebius did it. So, I just want to point out some of these things. The way this is written, and it just, this. The problem is, here's the problem with the Catholic Church. Okay, It's a mixture of sanctified believers and non-sanctified believers merged together, the Catholic Church, okay? And their interpretation, they're trying to make it work for both, alrighty? And that's why they can't get into this. They have to get into works in order to unify. And probably people, very intelligent people, um, person desire for unity can exceed desire for truth and not know it and thinking they're all aligned with truth. Okay, it's just the way the the mind plays tricks on itself. So a lot of people, they have a strong desire for unity and they don't understand. They're butchering truth in the process and in their assessment, gathering information. Um, it's like there's a filter. And I believe a lot of your Catholic apologists are that way. Jimmy and Ken, Trent Horn, um, Catholic Answers. They don't realize their desire for unity is so strong that they're actually sacrificing truth and they don't know it. You're just not going to know. And it's the way it is. So anyway, yeah. So kudos to Patrick from 119 Ministries again, I think. So pointing this out right here. But again, as you continue reading on, it's this guy was definitely Jewish. And I believe he was part of the house of Israel. I don't believe he's a Gentile, and I don't believe he's a Roman. And I'm glad they at least say probably. Okay, but anybody who mature in their theology and read Clement, you realize that this guy could not have been a Gentile. And then if you're even more mature in your theology, you realize this guy was not part of Rome. So anyway, that's all I have to say. So just some comments on that. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day.